Create content that attracts, converts, and keeps your ideal clients. This is Content Sells. Hi, you're listening to the Content Sells podcast, the show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. Welcome to episode 175. I'm Suzi Dafnis, and here with me is my co-host, Michelle Falzon. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hey, Suzi, I'm great. And I'm so happy to be talking about one of our favorite topics and one of our favorite episodes of the year.
This is actually the final episode for the year 2021. And I love this episode too because we talk about books, one of my favorite things. And we've been doing a similar episode to this for the last few years where we share our top content marketing books. And we usually add in other books that we think are relevant, even if they're not strictly copywriting or content marketing, or marketing books at all. And this year we have some great ones to add. So we have a Content Sells reading list. It's a recommended reading list that we've been building over the last few years. And it really is a great go-to, whether you're looking for books about copywriting or social media or marketing strategy or the inner game of business. This is a really great list. And we'll give you a link to that updated document a little later in the show. So, this has been a bit of a tricky year for me as it comes to books. I'm a big book lover. Michelle knows this. I'm such a big book lover that one of my favorite things to do is to interview authors. But this year, business has just been a little bit different, and I haven't had reason to interview as many authors about their amazing books. And as a result, I just haven't read as much. And so it definitely still wasn't slim pickings because I do read, but it just wasn't as big a reading year for me. What about you?
Yeah, I noticed I read a lot less this year in terms of books. I've still read a heap this year. And I was feeling kind of guilty about it, actually, because I, like you, love books, big consumer of books, read many, many books a year usually. And I was only just a couple of weeks ago talking to my husband about it and kind of saying how when I get into bed at night or those times when I might normally read, I just look at a book and go, I've really leaned on my Audible subscription, and that is pretty much how I've been consuming books this last year. And it occurred to me that I think the reason is I am reading such a lot during the day. This last year in particular, even more. My job is content, right? So I'm reading a lot anyway, but it's just gone to a quantum level this year. And so like, for example, a project that I'm just finishing that's been really intense. And in one particularly intense week, about a month ago, I wrote over 100,000 finished words. And it was about 8 days.
What is that? How many?
Well, a book, a business book is about 50,000 words.
So you wrote 2 books?
Yeah. And it was actually more like writing 150,000 words because it was 100,000 finished words. It was for scripts that were filmed. And so it was all really precise and dialed in. But, you've got to write. You write a bunch of stuff, you tweak it, you change it, you write again. So I probably wrote 150,000 words in those 8 days. It was intense. And of course, to get there, I had to read and reread that content, and then it went through a few passes. So it was like reading. It was not only like reading 3 books that week; it was like writing 3 books that week. And it was, like I said, it was about actually 8 days. And so it was actually after that I realized, hey, stop beating yourself up about not reading as many books because there's a lot of reading going on. And I'm very happy to say I have a stack of gorgeous novels and autobiographies, like fun, awesome books that I cannot wait to dig into over the summer when I've created a bit of space for myself.
I love that. I have a mental picture of you sitting out under an umbrella or with a hat on, reading, feet up, Resting after
Is
a
there a
big
cocktail in
year.
my hand, Susie? I need to know.
Cocktail in hand? Yes, yes, yes. One in each hand, actually.
Oh, speak it, sister.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Yeah, like you, I haven't read anything sort of fun. I've been reading business books, which I love, but I haven't read anything that is just kind of like you said, like gorgeous novel autobiography that kind of just takes you away. I've been very purposeful with my reading, but some really, really good things in there. So we want to talk about those. We want to give you our book recommendations for this new year. Things that you can add to your book list. Now, whether you're an Audible listener or you're a Kindle reader or a regular book reader, these are some for you to bookmark for your own reading list. Michelle, why don't you go ahead and kick us off? I know you've got a real goodie.
Yes. Now, this is actually a book written by a guest that we've had on the show twice, and that is the wonderful Victoria Labalme. And her book is called Risk Forward, and she released it this year. It's a Wall Street Journal bestseller. And if you want to hear a bit more about what Risking Forward is all about, in Victoria's words, you want to check out episode 173, which is called Risk Forward. Sorry, I'll try that again. Risk Forward, Embrace the Unknown and Unlock Your Hidden Genius with Victoria Labalme. And she has some amazing advice to give on that episode. And it really is such a gorgeous book. It is beautiful looking. It's very colourful and it's a quick read. But the ideas I have found, and from talking to others who've read the book, the ideas stay with you long after you've read the book. Actually, probably even more so than some of the much longer, meatier books that I've read. The ideas really stay with me. And I think the meat in this one is in the depth of the concepts that she shares. So even though it's a fairly light read, it's a very thoughtful book. And, she might say one line, but it's the kind of a one-liner that'll have you thinking all afternoon. And like I said, it's not your usual looking book. It's very colourful. There aren't a lot of words on the page. There's a lot of drawings and diagrams, and it's more of an experience, actually, which I know was Victoria's goal in creating this book. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's great. You and you can approach it from any page, can't you?
Yeah, it's great. It's like open it up and it's an inspiration on every page. Really, really lovely.
Yeah, and I just thought I'd just quickly share a couple of the things from the book that have really stayed with me. And one is this idea that Victoria really opens with, which is this concept of embrace the fog of not knowing. She calls it the fog of not knowing. And it's that period we've all felt, that transition when the path, the plan, or the project that you're working on maybe isn't yet clear, or you can't even see what's next, and you're feeling that real in-betweenness. Maybe you've just finished a project or left your job or sold your business, and there's this in-between state and you're not quite sure what to do next. And she says if we can meet this void without grasping for the most convenient way out, what we discover will be beyond our expectations and imagination. And I have absolutely found that to be true in my life when I don't rush to try and resolve the situation and just fill that space with anything. And I just respect the space. I respect that fog of not knowing. And it does take holding some tension, I think. And when you can embrace that and wait for the clarity to come and know that it's coming, and then embrace that clarity when you have it, that's when I've had some of my biggest breakthroughs in my life, not just in my business, but in my life. And so I really found that really resonated with me. The other idea was, she talks a lot in the book about your inner current. And she says we each have an inner line of wisdom. And, people call it different things. For me, I often refer to that as my intuition. People call it their gut instinct or their sense of knowing or whatever you might call it. But she has this fabulous list on one page. It's just a list of things, words that tell you how you know that you're in that current, you're tapping into that inner current. And here's just some of the words. And I just thought it was such a practical idea, and I've never really seen it done like this in a book before. So she just listed out these words. If you are intrigued, engaged, curious, propelled, energized, calm, grounded, centered, expansive, inspired, activated, even a little excitedly scared, chances are that you're following your inner current. And I just love that, because I think about the times I'm the most engaged, that I'm the most curious, that I feel the most activated. And they are definitely the times I'm following my inner current. I want more of that in my life. So it's a great kind of cue card almost to see where I'm bored or where the energy's draining. You know, that's probably not I'm not in my inner current.
That is a little good little flashcard, sort of something you could have on the side that's like, am I feeling any of these things? If not, how do I feel more grounded or calm or propelled or curious or engaged or intrigued or any of those wonderful words that you just used? Yeah, great.
And I think I misquoted. I think I said it was at 175, but it's actually episode 155 if you're looking for that for Victoria. But you can always just search Content Sales Podcast and then Victoria Labalme, Labalme. And the last thing that she says in the book, which is advice my mother gave me many, many years ago, and it's precious to me, and I think Victoria's so on the money with this, is this idea of just taking the next step. You don't have to have the whole plan figured out sometimes. You know, we're all for beginning with the end in mind here on the show with strategies and things. But there are times where it's just like, I'm just going to follow the white rabbit. And I know when I've done that in my life, it's led to some pretty fabulous places, Suzi.
Love it. And this is a great book. And Michelle gifted me a copy of this book. And then another friend gifted me a copy of the book. So I have 2 copies, which I treasure. And it is, firstly, it's just such a beautiful looking book, but also the messages I know were very, very deeply thought about and come from all that wonderful experience that Victoria has, helping so many people. So that is that book. I'm very, very excited to be featuring that book here. And big shout out to the gorgeous Victoria if you're listening. We adore you, and thank you for sharing the book with us and bringing that into the world this year. The book that sort of if we look at something that's totally different, like, because sometimes we need a book that has big concepts and big ideas and has us think deeply, and other times we need something that's really practical. We have a job to be done and we're looking for a formula to do that. And one of those books, and I find his books actually really practical, there's an author named Russell Brunson. He's also an incredible online marketer, and his latest book in a series of books is called Traffic Secrets, the underground playbook for filling your websites and funnels with your dream customers. Now, he's a fast talker. He's a fast worker. He owns ClickFunnels, which is a multi-million-dollar organization. And I picked this book up. Again, I think someone gave it to me. People give me books because they know I love books. And I picked it up. And why I was really interested in it is because we can create the best products and services. We can really know our ideal clients. But if we don't know how to get more eyeballs, more traffic to our offers, to our websites, to our webinars, to our podcast, to all those things, it's all for nothing. And so his book, which was actually released a couple of years ago, but I pulled it out of the shelf and re-listened to it. I've got it on in the car at the moment, actually, because there's one particular section I'm listening to over and over again in preparation for a training we have coming up. And it's about anything from, he tells you how he created the traffic to sell 141,000 books in the first 90 days from when his book was released. He tells you how he drove traffic to his Facebook community to get it to 250,000. He tells you where to find your dream customers, where they are out there, like what blogs are they reading, what podcasts are they listening to, but also, and this is the bit that I've been listening to on rotation, he's been talking about how to tap into other people's distribution channels and audiences. And one of the quickest way, and we've talked about this here on the show, to build your business is not only through your owned traffic, so your website, your email address, your own followers, what you own, but also through your earned traffic. And earned traffic is when you tap into other people's audiences. And so this is very early on in the book. This is one of the traffic strategies that he shares. But he also goes into other things granularly, like how he grew his Instagram following. But not just this is how you grow Instagram. He talks about how it fits into his overall traffic strategy, and then he gives you some really practical skills. So it's a very practical one. It's one that you will thumb through and bookmark and highlight and all those things. But for any small business owner, right, we create these wonderful things and we don't get enough people finding out about them. And this, Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson, is a real down and dirty, here's how you do it, really, really practical approach. So highly recommend it.
Yeah, I love it. And you're so right about the traffic piece. is very often the missing piece. You know, people have got smarter about being strategic about their funnel. They've got the great landing page. They've got a lead magnet. Like if somebody would just take the lead magnet and follow the step 2 process and the problem solution dance up the mountain, they'd buy, but they're just getting somebody in that first instance to take that first step. So yeah, fantastic book recommendation. And I'm also going to follow up with another more practical book. And this is the relaunch actually of the book Launch by Jeff Walker. And this book originally came out quite a few years ago, and it was a New York Times bestseller at the time when it was first released. And Jeff is the person who invented the product launch formula. Now, you may not know it as that, but chances are you've seen many, many people using his strategy. It's a process a lot of online marketers have used, tens of thousands of people have used to sell a product. And it works kind of like in its simplest form, it's about delivering some value ahead of time. And then you do that through, say, you can do it through emails, you can do it through video, you can even do it through some sort of challenge, but you deliver some very specific pre-launch content that builds people up into kind of a frenzy, that builds up this intense interest and anticipation in what you're about to launch. And then you open the cart, that is, you open the offer up for people. And this term open cart, it just means like the shopping cart when you're online and you're shopping, you put things in your cart. So you open the ability for people to put your thing in the cart. And then the cart is open for just a very short period of time, sometimes just 3 days or 5 days or 7 days, and then the cart closes. And at the end of that, when the cart closes, something goes away, whether it's the entire offer goes away, as is the case with some of the programs that you see that are only available once or twice a year, or a special deal goes away. Maybe there was a fabulous price, or maybe there was a wonderful bonus that came with it, and all of that goes away. So it really does rely on this idea of urgency and scarcity. And I think part of the secret to the success of the product launch formula is that when we're trying to market something all the time, the energy sort of dissipates. But when you have only something that's available for just a very short period of time, all your energy as a marketer can be focused on that, but also all your customers' energy. You can get their attention. You can focus them on it too. And we know from, our love affair with Cialdini and his book Influence, that this idea of scarcity and people really feeling like, oh, I've got to take action now, and urgency really are hugely massive motivators in getting people to take action and buy your product. So it's a great book that just explores the nuts and bolts of this product launch formula, what your pre-launch looks like, what your pre-launch looks like, what your actual open cart looks like. He's got some great examples in there from really diverse kind of industries and businesses. And Jeff is a fantastic marketer. He's a master. Many people call him, an OG, an original gangster of the online marketing world. He dates back to, some of the early days. He himself has done many, many multi-million-dollar launches. I'm fortunate to have him as a mentor and have been, under his mentorship, if you want to put it like that, for, I think 6 or 7 years. And he's brought a really amazing community of people around him. So I have a lot of respect for Jeff and for what he teaches and for the process, because it really does work. Although I have to say there are definitely nuances to it. Would you agree, Suzi? I know it's a process both you and I have used.
Absolutely. It's, people see people doing launches and they think what's happening at face value is what it is, but it actually runs deeper. And that's what I really like about the book, is that he does really break it down to the psychology of what's happening. So it's not just the fact that you are doing emails or you're opening the card or you're closing the card or you have this many videos. It really is about the process, how you triggering people to become excited about what you're doing. And this book is one that I too had read. Michelle introduced me to the book many years ago, and I'd read the book, and we've used the process, to launch courses and relaunch our membership and all sorts of things. But you can't learn less. I believe that. A mentor of mine said that to me once. And so when this book was coming out again, I was very excited because, one, I know firstly it's at least twice the size of the old book. And I know that there's now, digital marketing has come a long way from when the first launch book came out. So there's whole new sections on social media and launches and doing things with, like, I know that doing live launches, for instance, that wasn't a thing when he wrote that book. And a live launch is, again, without going into too much detail, it's just a different way to let people know that something's coming, to then sort of get them interested in the idea, to then making the offer, all without having to build something and hope that they will come, but actually doing something in real time. So, yeah, there are definitely nuances. And like I said, Michelle, I was so excited about this book that we decided to choose it as our book club book for this exact quarter. And so our members are so freaking excited because, and so many have said, this is perfect timing. And so we've used launch to teach for this last whole month inside of our network some of the top principles that we have taken from the book that apply to the focus that we have inside of her business. And so inside of her business, every month we focus on a different element of business that is crucial to creating a sustainable business. Now, sales and marketing is kind of a given that we would focus on that throughout the year. But what the product launch formula is, and this is what you'll learn inside of the book, it's actually a system. It's a proven system. And as Michelle said, there's example after example of how to use this system to take people from not knowing who you are to expecting and waiting for you to let them buy from you. And so it's very, very exciting. And so some of the, so the book club is one of the most loved parts of the Her Business Network membership. And 4 times a year, I actually personally select a book and send it to our members. And some of the books are books that we've been featured here. The authors have been here on the show. And others are books that I just know because I watch and what's happening inside of our members group that I feel that women could really use. And they don't have time to scour all the bookstores or go through all the online bookstores and find the books. And so they trust that I've got them covered, and I totally have. And so I was just so excited. And, Jeff was excited that we were using this as product, as our book club book as well, and sent a beautiful message to our members. So, yes, thanks for this recommendation. Very, very good.
It's a goodie. And you've got another great recommendation. We've got more for you, folks.
We got more for you. So Mike Michalowicz we haven't had him on the show, but maybe we will one day. He's someone I've had the pleasure of interviewing a number of times, and he is one of my favorite business book authors in that his books are really, really practical. So we're back on another practical one. And so he wrote books like Profit First and Clockwork, some very popular books, especially in the small business area. And his kind of mission as a person is to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. And so what he means by that is people starting businesses and then just not having them work out, not having them make the money, not having, after years and years or months and months of toiling, the entrepreneur being able to see any sort of profit. So his latest book, which I love, and I'm only partway through, but I loved it enough to make it a recommendation here. It's called Get Different. Now, he's a kooky guy. He's got a great sense of humor, and I'm listening to the book, and he reads the book, and you get all his injections of his humor, but you also get his brilliance. And it's really about getting different with your marketing. It's about uncovering effective and simple but very different marketing campaigns. And so he uses his humor and his very, very straight talk and lots of lessons from the entrepreneurs that he works with, and he works with entrepreneurs all over the world, to create this system. So he's got a system that has 3 questions to it. Does your marketing differentiate? Does it attract people? And does it direct them to what you want them to do next? Words that might sound a little familiar to what we're on about here. But the whole thing is about standing apart. How do you stand apart from the competition? And if you listen to this for 5 minutes, you'll know, is it because of the ideal client you serve? Is it because of the way you've packaged and priced your offer? Is it about where you're making your offer? what platform you're using. Is it, some sort of nuance to the way that you talk about what you do? So he really dissects it, and he's very good at being prescriptive, but giving you enough space to be creative and yourself. And so that is called Get Different. It's sort of, flying off the shelves. And I've seen a lot of love for this book out there by other prominent marketers. And like I said, he's a great guy. He's a good writer. He's entertaining to read. And for me, part of reading is that it's fun and that I want to do what the author is prescribing to do. And I think you'll certainly find that with Get Different.
Yeah, absolutely. He's such a good communicator. And I don't know, you've probably seen it, Suzi, but part of his promotion for the Get Different book, he was obviously trying to, live his message. Did you see that crazy video that he put out?
He has done so many crazy things. Like, this has been like a campaign to how silly can Mike be to get this book out there. So I'm not sure exactly which one you're referring to.
This one involved silver hot pants, I think, that were quite short, and lots of booty shaking, and it was hysterical. But, he's really living he's walking the talk, and I really admire that about him for sure. Now, I'm going to take us in a completely different direction. We sort of began with a bit of a high concept book and something with a bit more philosophical. We've given you 3 really juicy, practical, tactical books. And now I'm going to go off into woo-woo land a little bit, if that's all right. I'm going to recommend a book called Radical Compassion by Tara Brach. And I'll say that title again, Radical Compassion. Now, you're probably picking up this is not a marketing book, but it is one of the most impactful books I've read, not just in the last year, but in a really, really long time. And that's saying something because, you read a book and you pick up 1 or 2 new things. And like when I was 19 and reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and, a whole bunch of books were really influential on me. Everything was new. But then as the decades, and I will say decades, go by, you start to pick up a lot of the foundational pieces, and it gets harder and harder to find something that kind of rocks your world. And this was probably the right book at the right time as well, but this book absolutely rocked my world. And I think as business owners, and really as humans, but particularly as business owners, entrepreneurial people who demand a lot of themselves and who have high standards and big goals and maybe could possibly be perfectionists. I'm not saying anything other than maybe that's me. We can be very hard on ourselves, and we lack a lot of compassion for ourselves. And, if we spoke our inner dialogue out loud to another human being, like, we'd be shocked. We'd never say
like abuse.
Yeah, right. We'd never say the things we say to other people that we just naturally are finding going on in our own heads. And so this book, Radical Compassion by Tara Brach, is all about how to have a little more compassion for ourselves, the thoughts we have, the decisions we make, our past, things that have happened in the past, our feelings, the way we're showing up right in this very moment. And it is actually a very practical book, even though I said I'm going to go on the woo-woo train for a second. It's very practical because she shares a specific process that is called RAIN, RAIN. So it's a really simple acronym to remember. And I absolutely can tell you, when I once heard somebody say, people talk about a book that changed their life, but actually a book that changes your life is like the book that shows you how to open a can differently, or that shows you how to walk down a set of stairs differently. Like, it literally changes your life. And this is definitely one that's done that, because I find I can call on this RAIN process all the time, like often daily. And I'll just recap what it is. So it's RAIN. The R stands for recognize. So it's just recognize what's happening. The A is to allow the experience to be there just as it is. The I is to investigate with gentle attention. And the N is to nurture with self-compassion. And I'll give you a little example of how this plays out. So if I'm getting stressed about something, I can, when we're not conscious of this process, we can just get stressed, and then it can spin out, and we can, have our outburst, and then we go and have a bath or a drink of wine or a good sleep and wake up the next day and we just move along. But the RAIN process is all about recognize. That's the first step. And I actually think it's the game changer.
Yes.
Becoming more conscious of the things we're feeling. And Then if I'm getting stressed, it's just recognizing, hey, I'm getting stressed, and then allowing it. And this is also a game changer, because I think if we feel we've got to be perfect or the leader or always in command of ourselves or always in charge or never dropping the ball, when we feel stressed or upset or angry or hurt or whatever those things are, we tend to push it away or deny those things. And just the simple act of allowing it, I can feel myself exhaling just thinking about it right now. So it's like, okay, I'm stressed, or I'm hurt by what was said, or I'm feeling left out, or whatever is going on. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling like everybody's looking to me for the answer, whatever it is. You just say, okay, I'm allowing that feeling. I'm allowing that to be the current reality. And then you move on to I, which is investigate. So what might actually be going on here? And she gives you some questions to ask. And so these are her questions. What most wants attention? Just such a good question. How am I experiencing this in my body? And I've found that to be a really good way into understanding this. Like, oh, I'm feeling it in my tummy. I'm tight in my tummy, or I'm feeling it in my chest, or I'm feeling it in my throat, or I'm feeling it I'm tensed up all over, like I'm gripping my fists together, or whatever it might be. And sometimes just tuning into how you're experiencing that feeling or that situation in your body is a good way into just investigating. What am I believing? What does this vulnerable place want from me? What does it most need? So it's just this investigation of, hey, I'm stressed. I'm recognizing I'm stressed. I'm allowing the fact that I'm stressed. And then I'm saying, where am I feeling this stress in my body? I'm feeling like I'm in a vulnerable place. What do I need? What does this situation most need? And that's when the nurture comes. So once you've investigated and you see, I just need a little bit of time out, or I need to have a few things off my list, or I need to get out of this room where all these people are that are stressing me out, or whatever it is. Then we nurture. That's the N. And that's how might I provide comfort to myself. Do I need a message of reassurance, of forgiveness, of compassion, of love? And it's just experimenting, she suggests, which of these intentional gestures of kindness most help to comfort, soften, or open our heart. And self-compassion, I think, is so needed. And she says self-compassion begins to naturally arise in the moments that we recognize we're suffering. And I really love this book because it's not just about recognizing that we're suffering. That's just one part of the puzzle. And I'm not one for wallowing, and I don't like wallowing. But I think when I think about the word wallowing, if you take that W away from the front, it's about allowing. And that's what she has taught me to do. It's that I can actually allow these feelings, and then I can then actually investigate them and nurture them. And it's just a little cycle you can run in like 5 seconds sometimes to just reset. And I highly recommend this book. It's on Audible, and the Audible version is great because Tara reads it and she's got this very kind of soothing voice. She sounds a bit like Holly Hunter in my view. And she actually takes you through some of the guided meditations. So it's like a book and a meditation all at once. So she'll read out the little meditation, and then she gives you the 30-second space, and then she rings the little bell. So you get all of that experience as well. But just don't listen to it while you're driving your car. That's what I did the first time. I had a long trip and I was like, oh, I can't do these meditations while I'm driving. But great book, Tara Brach, and it's called Radical Compassion.
Very good. And I feel like there won't be a business owner who's listening who couldn't do with a little more self-love and self-compassion, and especially being sort of at the end of the year where maybe not everything turned out the way that we had hoped, and we might be, rousing on ourselves a little bit for not being quite good enough, or not getting the results we wanted, or not beating, that budget that we had set for ourselves. And I feel like I thought I had this book, and just as you were talking, I looked in my Audible library and I didn't. And so I've just bookmarked it, to download because I know you've talked to me about this RAIN process before and how powerful it's been for you to help you reset those moments where you might be triggered by, something or someone or whatever. So that's very, very powerful.
Yeah, and I love it.
Yeah, and I think that, I love that this is a non-business book in this business environment, because there's the inner game of business as well as the outer game of business. And while you might be able to get the traffic to the, and the eyeballs to the channel that you want and do your launch formulas, if inside, we are in turmoil, if we don't have that self-compassion and we don't take care of the inner side of doing business, the rest is not going to work out, in my experience. As I found for me that the more I work on me and my mental headspace, my resilience, my ability to bounce back, which is my resilience, my mindset, my grit, all those things really, really matter. So for me, self-help books or personal empowerment books, big thinking books, and then practical books, they're kind of the three go-tos, and even when I'm on vacation, sometimes it'll be like a self-help book rather than a novel or something for me. Anyway, just a bit of insight. But thank you for that one. And like I said, I have bookmarked that in Audible for the next time I have a credit that is ready to be used. So the final book that we're recommending today, and is one that you've already heard his name here on the show today, and that is the wonderful Robert Cialdini, who 30 years ago almost, I think, wrote the book Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. And this book has been a handbook and a guidebook for so many business owners since then. And I first read it in 1991. It was about this time of the year. No, 1992, excuse me, about this time of the year. And I have had, almost every print since then, and I've given hundreds of copies away. And actually, for a long time, when women would join our mastermind program, we would give them a copy of the book. And this is one of those books where the principles are so fundamentally important to us as business owners that we've talked about, I don't know, we could do a search for how many episodes of Content Cells we've mentioned Cialdini on, but it is a lot. Right? Because his principles about ethical influence of persuasion are just so important when you're looking to attract and convert and keep your clients. And he comes from the scientific part of it, the psychology part of it, but he puts it in such a palatable way that he has these memorable stories and really relatable examples that you'll love. And so he makes this subject of influence and persuasion so surprisingly easy. Now, this book is the new updated edition. It's only recently come out, and there are 6 fundamental principles of influence. You heard one of them earlier: scarcity. Some of them you would have heard before: social proof, authority, liking, commitment and consistency, etc. But in this new edition, and it's an expanded edition, he introduces a new principle called unity. And Michelle and I were talking about this about a week ago. This is a principle that has sort of been underlying, and it works in really well with the other principles. And it's what he talks about is it's a principle of social influence, this principle of unity. And in this chapter devoted to unity, he describes how individuals who can be convinced that a communicator is one of us become remarkably more susceptible to the communicator's persuasive appeals. So that's a direct quote. So what that means, and it ties back to what we often say here on the show, is if you can get into the shoes of your ideal client and they feel like you are like them, that you understand their problems and pains so much because you've talked about it in the way that you are just like them, it makes the job of persuading them to take the next step, or that you might have a solution to their problem, that much easier. And he's all about ethics. So that's one of his highest values, is on ethical persuasion. And so I'm very excited about the new release. He's an awesome, awesome man and amazing human being. And I've had the pleasure of knowing he and his wife since 1995. We met in person. And so I really recommend, if there's a book you're going to have on your shelf and you're going to keep it forever, and I'm pulling it down and referencing it all the time, and I know, Michelle, you have it sort of on at close quarters as well. It's this book of influence. And so it's Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Dr. Robert Cialdini.
Yeah, what a massive contribution he has made. I mean, it really is the one book. Of all the books on the reading list, and, when you download the reading list for today's show, you'll see there's a lot of books there. Of all the books, this is the one. If you're only going to get one, this is the one to get. It really has the seed of all successful marketing, but also all successful influence in all areas of your life. And I love his ethics. I love that he's wanting to help us understand this so we can also not be influenced by unscrupulous activities as well. And there's more and more of that happening on the planet. And so just being aware on every level of what he's sharing, I think is just an all-round good move.
So there you have it. There are 6 new recommendations and additions to our Content Marketers book list. They are Risk Forward by Victoria Labalm, Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson, Launch by Jeff Walker, Get Different by Mike Michalowicz, Radical Compassion by Tara Brach, and the new edition of Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion by Dr. Robert Cialdini. And as I said at the start of the show, we'll include a link to our reading list where you can see these books and all our top recommendations all in one place. There's some amazing books in there to get you started with your content marketing or to continue your journey as you become a better and better marketer. Now, we love sharing tips with business owners. We love having wonderful guests. We love sharing, what books to read. So if you enjoyed this episode, here's what I want to ask. Would you be willing to leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts? We would appreciate it so much. We have over 91 5-star reviews, and it just makes a real difference to get the word out about the show. And every year, this is our 6th year. Now, we've just celebrated our 6th birthday. The listenership continues to grow. And what I know this means is that more and more of you are getting the value of getting clarity and focus around how to attract and convert and keep your ideal clients. So one person that I want to give a quick shout out to before we go is Tracy McLaughlin of Davis Ogilvy in New Zealand. She says they make marketing concepts easy. I love the podcast. So they being me and Michelle make marketing concepts easy. I love the podcast. And the lovely Tracy, not only is she a listener, but she's one of our newest Marketing Success Mastermind members. She's based in New Zealand, as I indicated by when I described her company. And she is rocking it inside the mastermind, isn't she?
She totally is. I'm loving, she's already got like a promotion underway. She's really got really clear on who her ideal client is, and she's really clarified her offer because she's got a high ticket offer, something that a lot of people think is bespoke and that you couldn't possibly package up that offer. But using a strategy we've shared with her in the mastermind, she's found a way to do that.
Yes, she is on her way. Thank you so much for those beautiful words, Tracy. Now, we want you to go ahead and get your hands on this reading list. You're going to find it over at herbusiness.com/2022 books, as in the year 2022, herbusiness.com/2022 books. All righty. That's all we have for this episode. What have we got coming up next, Michelle?
Well, there's a bunch of stuff that we keep giving feedback on to various people around their emails and their newsletters. It's the same feedback that we give a little bit over and over again. And these are some really common mistakes and traps that people fall into. And with some small tweaks, you can stop making those mistakes and actually get a lot more traction with your email and your newsletters. And we're going to talk about what those mistakes are and how you can overcome them in the next episode. All coming up all around email and newsletters.
Yes, so that's coming up 2 weeks from now. So be sure to subscribe so that you get that episode when it drops. Before we go, Michelle, anything you want to say?
I want to know what our listeners are reading. So head on over to our Facebook page. Just look for Content Sells on Facebook and tell us, what are you reading? There might be something we want to add to our reading list over the summer as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time right here on the Content Sells podcast. And hey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.